Now the owner, they award the bid to a contractor, and the contractor is happy and everyone is happy because the construction is going to start finally, but not so fast because there are some like legal and administrative things that need to happen before, and few of them are, you know, like the insurances for the contractor, because, you know, what if somebody gets injured on site? What if like a machine blows up on site? Who's gonna pay for that? They also have to provide some type of like financial evidence that they can build the projects, because you don't want to hire a contractor and then they will file bankruptcy, you know, after 3 months, and then you're left with like this mess and nobody to come clean it. So they have to provide this thing called performance bond. So in case the contractor cannot finish the project, this insurance company comes in and gives you the money to finish it. And then we start this phase called construction administration. So it's usually, once the construction starts, is the contractor's show. So they are like the ones doing most of the work, but the architect still needs to be part of the project. And there are a few things that the architect does during the construction. So as I mentioned earlier, even during construction, the contractor will always have questions, and they will be like, so hey architect, so you said like you want to build this window like 3 foot above the floor, but then in your elevations you're showing it as like 2 feet above the floor. Like, which one should I follow? And then you as the architect has to go to your drawings, look at it, and then send a response. Of course, there is a formal process that you need to follow, because the contractor cannot just pick up the phone, ask you a question, you answer it, and then you hang up. It has to be a written format. They have to send an email. They have to send, there are like a few softwares called management softwares. They send you the RFI through that, and then you look at it, you review with your engineers, and then you send the answer to the contractor. So answering RFIs is one job duty that you have to do during construction. Now, the second big one would be submittals. So submittals is basically like a sample. Like, let's say you have carpet on all the hallways of the hotel, right? And before you go, when you order like, I don't know, like 500K worth of carpets, you have to get a sample from the manufacturer, send it to the architect, and be like, hey architect, is this what you want? Because we're gonna make a big order, and it better be the right one, because you're not gonna like return it if it's not the right one. So you have to make sure that you're getting the right material. So that's kind of like a typical type of sample, or it could be a paint, you know, is this the right paint that you want before we make a purchase, etc., etc. So you will have to review the submittals as the architect. So the other big thing beside RFIs and submittals would be field report. So as an architect, you will have to go on site, not extensively, but here and there, just to observe. You know, you're just like there to look at how things are progressing. You know, you're not like bossing anybody around. You're not telling people what to do. You just look and you go back to your office, you write a report, and you send it to the owner and the contractor. Now, it's very, very, very important to not tell the subcontractors what to do. Subcontractors are the people working under the contractor. So let's say you go on site and you see that they built something wrong, right? You do not tell them to stop the work. You go back to your office, you write an email, you say, hey contractor, I saw that this and this is happening on site, or like I saw that something is not safe on site. Please go and talk to your man or your women about what they're doing. The reason why the architect should never tell the subcontractors or the contractor to stop the work, because it goes back to our example of the hotel that needs to open by the summer. Because let's say you tell them to stop working and they stopped working, and now the project is delayed by a month. So now the hotel is not gonna open until September. Nobody's gonna go to the beach in September. So now the owner lost so much money. We're talking like millions of dollars that they lost because you decided to tell someone to stop the work. So you never tell anyone to stop the work. You let them do the work. You have to let the owner and the contractor right away. You let them decide, because at the end of the day, the architect does not have a contract with the contractor. The architect has, remember this, the architect can only talk to the owner and sometimes talk to the contractor, but they cannot tell them what to do. So you let the owner and the contractor handle that. You don't get involved. So that's the third role that you do during the construction. So yeah, as I said, you do the RFIs, you answer RFIs, you review submittals, you generate field reports. Another big one, a big one that happens during construction is something called change orders. And this is every client's nightmare. A change order in a simplified way is anything that was not accounted for in the timeline or in the budget. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say we want to build a hotel, right? And the contractor is gonna start digging for foundation, and they're gonna find contaminated soil. You know, it's like a soil that you cannot build on top of. Now, what's gonna happen? Everyone has to stop the work, and they have to bring like experts, and then they have to like kind of clean up the soil, and then the construction can resume. Now, so what happens is the contractor is gonna be like, well, I didn't know when I told you I'm gonna build this for $100 million, I had no idea I need 500K extra to clean the soil. So now, owner, you gotta pay me the 500K. And this gives the contractor a very, very powerful position, because now the contractor is already in. They are already doing the work. They can ask for any price and the owner has to say yes, basically. You know, usually they don't exaggerate, but contractors make a lot of money out of change orders. This can really, really break the project. So basically anything that will change the timeline or the budget or the scope of work will need to be written as a change order, and the architect will have to sign it, contractor has to sign it, and the owner has to sign it, because it's basically a new contract, right? Because the original contract we signed was $100 million. Now it's $100 million plus 100K. So they all have to agree that this is the new updated version of the contract, and that is a change order. There's the other thing that's called application for payment and certificate of payment. Now, when the contractor needs to get paid, they send their invoices, surprisingly enough, to the architect. It's the architect who can approve the payment for the contractor. And let me explain why. Because let's say the contractor tells the owner, you know, because they give you at the beginning of the project, they give you a timeline, like this is what we're gonna do, what time, this is the milestone, etc., etc. But the owner, like most of the time, they're not very hands-on the project, so they don't really know like the day-to-day. But the architect needs to kind of have some sort of idea of what's going on site, because you're going to the field reports, you know what's happening. Now, let's say the contractor tells you, hey, you know, we just finished foundation and we just finished the walls and stuff like that. So give us 200K. This is how much work we did this week. We did 200K. But the owner, like, they don't know what's on site, but the architect can be like, wait a second, what wall are you talking about? I didn't see any walls when I went on site. I just saw the foundation, there was no walls. So I'm not gonna pay you the wall part. I'm just gonna pay you the foundation part. And then once you do the wall, then you come back to me and you tell me that you need the wall, and I will pay you for the walls. So architects can actually reject the payment for the contractor until the work is done, or until like there was material that was purchased, then they will approve the payment. That's basically the main roles that the architect plays during construction administration phase. So like I said, request for information, architect field report, change order, submittals, application for payment. So, you know, it just keeps on going. Every month is like the same until they finish construction. Now, something happens before they finish construction, and that is contractor's request for substantial completion. So the contractor is like, I think so. We are getting to a point where we're almost done with the project. We're gonna call the architect and the owner to come look at the site and do a punch walk. Now, don't ask me why it's called a punch walk, but just roll with it. So a punch walk is basically the contractor, owner, and architect all walking the site, and you know, it's like you pick on like pretty minimal things, like it looks like the paint got a little bit chipped over there, can you please correct that? Or like, you know, I see that there is like a little bit of dust over there, can you please clean it before you leave? You know, make sure you take all the trash out. It's just like minimal things here and there. It shouldn't be like you're missing an entire wall, like that should be caught before. So once you do that walk, then the architect generates a punch walk report, and then they send it to the contractor. The contractor picks it up. They're like, okay, trash cleaned, we repainted the wall, we did this, we did that. So I think now the project is done. So then they go back again and they do a final walk of the site, and then they're like, okay, it seems like everything looks good. So we're gonna give a certificate of substantial completion. The project can be occupied, you know, like the rooms can be used, the lobby is up and running, the pool is working, and everything looks good. So send us your last invoice. We're gonna pay you the invoice, and then we're gonna part ways. So now, before you let the contractor go though, you have to ask them about certain type of things. Before they get their last payment, they have to provide some documents for the architect and for the owner. So some of the documents that they have to provide for the owner are the warranties for, let's say, for the roof, for the mechanical equipment, for the AC units. Like, what if something happens 2 months from now and the AC is not working and people are grilled in the rooms? So who are we going to contact? Who's going to fix it? So that's when the contractor tells you, you know, don't worry, it's okay, you have a warranty of 1 year. If something happens, call us back, we're going to come back and replace it. So that's one thing they have to do. What they also have to do is they have to do something called a closeout, and this is something that you have to pay for. Usually it's like an extra thing that you have to ask the architect and the contractor to do, and that is basically review everything that got built, because what you design is not necessarily what's going to get built. So a lot of things kind of like changed during the process, so you have to make sure you have the most updated drawing. If the architect told you to place a switch at a certain wall, but you decide, your electrical subcontractor decided to put it on a different wall, you have to let me know that got moved so I can update the drawings. Because a lot of time is, you know, the project get finished, then the architect is like, okay, so this is your set of drawings, if you need renovation, just use this plan. But most of the time, the plan that they designed and what is built is completely off. So that's why you always have to ask your contractor and your architect to give you the as-built, the closeout drawings, not the design drawings, because those are just like in the past. Nobody's gonna use them anymore. So, and now, you know, after you're done with your project closeout, you know, these are all the things that you have to submit. Everyone is done. They do like an opening ceremony. Everyone is happy. I hope so. And then, you know, everyone moves on to the next project. So that's pretty much the life of a project. This is probably like 5 years worth of work in like one document. It's just, it's amazing to see how they would just condensed in one document. But I feel like if you have a chance to take a look at this, I highly recommend going to check the American Institute of Architects website and go and look at their contracts. Because, you know, like I said, the owner has a contract with the architect and the owner has a contract with the contractor. And those contracts look like this. Like, they are pretty thick. So, you know, like, if this person doesn't want to pay this person, this is what's going to happen. If there is an issue with the drawings, this is who's going to pay for it. If this person cannot finish the work, this is what you can do. And there's this one, this is the B101. This is between the owner and the architect. And there is this one called the A201, which is between the contractor and the architect. And there's also A101. And there is like and there's like C41. This is between the consultants, like let's say your structural engineer and your architect. Like let's say the structural engineer missed something in the drawings. Now who is at fault? Is it the structural engineer? Is it the architect? So it's super dry, but really, really important documents. This is something that they don't teach us in school. And honestly, I would have paid an extra year of tuition to learn this. And they just don't, you know. And I understand this is like very business side, this is like really raw, real world stuff. And you know, like when you're in school, it's like la la land, you know, it's like design, oh it's beautiful, it's this and that. But this is legit. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on design, but you need to understand the big picture. Because if you want to be a good designer or a good architect, you have to understand the big picture. You can't just be like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on one thing. You have to like zoom out. And especially if you want to have your own firm at one point, these are super important. Like, I just don't know how to say it, you know. They're dry, they're long, but there's no shortcut for it. You have like, look at me, like I write all over these things because I am just constantly, you know, like outlining things and just, you know, like marking things up, because it's just so important. And I don't know how many times I read these, but every time I read it, I'm like, I didn't see this last time, because it's so dense. I always find out new things. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. And you know, sometimes I just like before bed I just read a contract and I learn a thing or two. So things that you have to do when you practice architecture. Anyway, so I think that was everything that I wanted to go over with. I hope this was helpful, because if you're a student, trust me, one day you're gonna remember this video and you're gonna come back and watch it. If you're practicing and you don't know these things, then please go talk to your principal, talk to your firm owner about these documents so you can understand the big picture. And if you already know this, then you are ahead of everyone else, and you know, just keep on exploring more things. So anyways, I hope this was a little bit helpful and gave you kind of a glimpse of what it's like to run and build a project in the US. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.